So we've been hearing for some time from Brexiteers both within the UK government and those not connected with Boris Johnson's administration that the EU have been the problem all along, that the UK is simply responding to a partner who's acting in bad faith. Now, Boris Johnson's government has been saying that their hand has been forced. It was never their intention to break international law, but in order to defend Northern Ireland, it is required. They've been saying this publicly, that the EU have been acting in bad faith. Well, what the government says in public is very different to what the government says in private to committees. Boris Johnson's government was providing information to the Northern Ireland Select Committee and said that the EU was, quote, working in good faith on Brexit implementation. Now, this somewhat undermines Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers' claim. Boris Johnson's government has made claims it needs this legislation in order to give it power to overrule the Brexit withdrawal agreement, because the EU has been threatening a move that could prevent Britain supplying food to Northern Ireland after the end of the transition period. Now remember that Boris Johnson has a direct link to his old job in the Telegraph. Well, they published an article by the Prime Minister and said that in the last few weeks he had become aware of a problem the way the EU was interpreting the withdrawal agreement, and then he explained it as so. We are now hearing that unless we agree to the EU's terms, the EU will use an extreme interpretation of the Northern Ireland Protocol to impose a full-scale trade border down the Irish Sea. We're being told that the EU will not only impose tariffs on goods moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, but that they might actually stop the transport of food products from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. He went on to say, I have to say that we never seriously believed that the EU would be willing to use a treaty negotiated in good faith to blockade one part of the UK, to cut it off, or that they would actually threaten to destroy the economic and territorial integrity of the UK. But on Monday morning, before Boris Johnson appeared in Parliament, the Commons Northern Ireland Affairs Committee published the government's response to a report it published on customs arrangements in Northern Ireland after the transition period. In it, the document says that the government believes that the EU is working with the UK on how to implement the withdrawal agreement, and I quote, in good faith. It says, and I quote, the government is extremely confident that the EU is working in good faith and shares our desire to avoid these serious consequences. However, as a responsible government, we must ensure that there is no risk of these damaging consequences coming into force. It is therefore important for the government to be able to act as necessary if a negotiated outcome in the Joint Committee should not be possible. This is not an outcome that we expect or hope for, but one any responsible government must be prepared for. This latest statement, in a document sent to the Select Committee by Brandon Lewis, who is the Northern Ireland Secretary, completely undermines the claim made by Boris Johnson at the weekend that the EU is not acting in good faith, something Brexiteers latched onto. Remember, Brandon Lewis is the same Northern Ireland Secretary who told Parliament that the UK will break international law by signing the Internal Market Bill into law. Now, how anyone at this stage can believe a word that comes out of Boris Johnson's mouth is beyond me. I've also left a link to the original document from the Select Committee in the description on this video, so I do recommend checking it out. Let me know in the comments section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?